Hello and welcome to another Music Monday. Today we're going to have a quick look at history of music rather than theory. I'm going to break it down for you from 400 AD to today. If this is your sort of thing, don't forget a like and a subscribe is always appreciated, and I'll make room for the slides by hiding me. I wanted to focus on classical music, which is still being composed today, but sometimes confused with the classical period in music, which only ran for about 80 years. We can break down classical music into 6 time periods: early music, Renaissance, Baroque, classical, Romantic, and 20th century plus. Let's have a brief look at each, then you can decide if you want to know more. First up is early music. This is generally considered any time from the fall of the Roman Empire to 1400, so roughly 1,000 years. A lot of the music was influenced by the church and primarily written for the human voice. This is partly because a lot of instruments had not been invented yet. Some instruments that were used are the recorder, trumpet, and surprisingly, bagpipes. Towards the end of the period, keyboard instruments started to be invented, like the harpsichord. Okay, on to the Renaissance. This covers roughly 200 years from 1400 to 1600. Most of the music remained religious, but mythology, astronomy and mathematics became more acceptable, and we also saw the invention of the printing press, so music could be shared much easier. Music was still mainly vocal and aimed at choral performances, but we now start seeing the lute and the sackbut come into use. Now we get to the Baroque era from 1600 to 1750, and we start to see operas and concertos appearing on the scene. The idea of grouping instruments together was the start of the modern orchestra, and the idea of making the listener feel emotion became very important. The main composers of this time were Vivaldi, Handel, and of course Bach. Now we come to the period known as classical from 1750 to 1830. We see the development of symphonies and sonatas. Human rights and religious freedom were being explored, also known as the Age of Enlightenment. The orchestra undergoes a change too. Instead of being dominated by organs or harpsichord, the strings are joined by flutes, horns, clarinet, oboe. This led to development of the symphony over a period where it started with 3 movements, going quick, slow, quick, and developing into 4 movements. The piano becomes an important instrument in its own right, with many notable sonatas being composed for it. The most influential figures you will have heard of are Haydn and Mozart. Then we have to mention Beethoven, who took inspiration and started writing in the style of Haydn and Mozart, but soon took his own path to what is known as the Romantic era of music. So the Romantic period runs from 1830 to 1900. Beethoven pioneered Romanticism, but other famous Romantic composers are the likes of Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Mahler and Verdi. The symphony rules were broken and no longer conformed to previous strict formulas. You also have the virtuosos like Liszt and Chopin proving how good they were. Richard Wagner took on development of the opera. He influenced Verdi and Puccini to change the composition rules. Basically, all the composers were tearing up the musical rule books and rewriting new ones with more and more extravagant and crazy ideas, leading to modernism. After 1900, music has continued to develop to this day. Think of Elgar and Britten, Stravinsky, Gershwin and John Williams. The 20th century saw massive political and technological change, and new musical forms and styles were created. After World War II, for example, many composers wanted to put the past behind them and experiment, like Schoenberg and Cage. Gershwin, Stravinsky and Ravel drew on jazz influence, and others embraced rock. Towards the end of the century, we have TV and video game music becoming mainstream. E.T., Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all making an impact on classical music. I hope you found that interesting. Now you can go and listen to some of that music with an idea of where it sits in history, and of course impress everybody with your bigger brain. Like and subscribe, always appreciated, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.